Yeah, it's your boy Joka, man. I'm here with my main man, Al Prophet, Mr. Murder City himself. I'd say we met each other in about 2007.
Where were we at?
We was in the jungle, man. We was in Murder City itself, in Detroit, on the west side. Yay, Puritan. Man, we met each other, man, through my partner AK, who connected us on videos.
I'm a general, so salute me blood. My money makes my money, so I keep some drugs. I gotta kill gang click, that'll knock your wig off.
And through doing videos, you know what I'm saying, we bonded and became friends, man. And I ended up later on going to the feds. And I got hit with 8 years, 96 months. And during that time, man, you know what I'm saying, so many people, you know, left your life and some people stayed and some people still remained solid. And Al was one of the dudes, man, that continued to reach out to me throughout my whole bid. Through Core Links, which is an emailing service, and even through mail, you know what I'm saying? He kept me updated on the upcoming projects he had going on, such as the T Stucky or the St. Alban project. And we just continued to bond, man. And you know, now we on a whole nother journey. We out here on this West Coast.
Much nicer situation.
You know what I'm saying? Everything legit. Everything is upstanding. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I came from a music background. I'm still in it.
I had a run where I was doing everybody's videos in Detroit, and everybody wasn't a drug dealer, but they almost all were. And you know, you were later convicted of involvement in some street activities. A few of you guys, like AK, Tone Scott, who I met you through, and a few other guys. Before we get into the gang stuff and all that, what's your musical background? And
my musical background, I gotta say, man, was a beautiful situation. Through more recently, we was working out deals with Capitol Records. Through Troy Marshall, we was talking about the 360 deal had just came on the table.
what year was this?
I'm bad with years, so I want to say 09, right before I actually got convicted. And I met Troy Marshall at a party that DJ Sour Milk was hosting. Well, he was DJing, and I was there to go meet him. And I seen that Troy was like the man in the club, which was the name of the single that I had at the time on the radio in the Midwest, was featuring Tone Tone. And we bonded. He liked my energy, I liked his energy, and he knew a couple of DJs, you know what I'm saying, that I was dealing with, such as Big Dog Blast, Wax Tax, and Dre. And he invited me to Interscope to listen to my music. And the funny thing about it, the day I went to Interscope for the first time, the power went out in the building, but I had my MacBook. See, one thing I learned about this industry, you stay strapped. You always keep your flash drive with you, laptop, CDs, anything that you got to be an opportunist with if you see the right people where you can network. So what I chose to do was we hooked up the laptop and we got busy. And through that situation, the offer was made.
Waldo, now go back. Wasn't some years prior, when you were younger, you had a situation where you actually got cashed out?
When I was in, I want to say 2001, was my first deal was with Sweet Music Records / Warner Brothers through Quentin Salmon. Shout out to Quentin, Bubba Lope, everybody over that way, man. We showed a lot of love over there. It actually was the first time that I actually got some music money. And I ever made any money off music was through Quentin Salmon. And I think he gave me $18,000. I went and bought a bird.
So where were you from, Detroit? How'd you end up out here, and how'd you get mixed up in the gang activity?
Well, if you ask me where I'm from, I'm gonna tell you I'm from DIE, and that's Detroit Inland Empire. From the west side of Detroit, Puritan Avenue, in Wildermere. I moved out here to Rialto at the age of 10. Due to child abuse, child neglect, going through a lot of things without having a dad in the house, and
Tell us some of the details.
I mean, the details is it brought me to California.
Your grandma, things were so bad, the California family said, hey,
it's time to go. But no, not just yet. See, that didn't happen yet. What happened was, I came out here in '89. We moved from the jungles to Rialto.
So you first moved to what's known as the jungles.
Known as the jungles area.
What's the
that area? I didn't know shit about that area at all.
For those who don't know what
I'm telling you, oh yeah, this the jungles, Black Pea Stones, Swoop.
That's where
my grandma moved from.
Day.
Which where they shot Training Day at. Shout out to my partner E-Rock, L Black. They from the J's. But I ended up moving out to Rialto in '89 with my grandmother, and it was slow. You know, I'm used to gunshots and people getting robbed, stabbed, and raped on the side of the house.
In Detroit.
In Detroit. So to be in a community where, you know, it's 2 parents in the home, kids wearing actual jerseys and uniforms to play sports, like it just was kind of like Leave It to Beaver to me.
But under the surface,
But under the surface, you know what I'm saying, what I realized was later on that this is not a place to play with at all. California is very dangerous because they're gangbanging out of $500,000 houses. So the rewind time is I was off. My grandmother gave me an option: go back to Detroit or stay here. I chose to go back to my mom in Detroit because I felt like if I didn't go back, then there was a possibility that I would lose my mother. So I always wanted.
What does that mean?
I mean, we was all getting abused. We all was in an abusive relationship.
Your mother's life was in danger.
My mother's life was in danger. My life was in danger. But instead of leaving my mom, I chose to go back and be with my mom.
At what age?
At 10. So, speeding it up to the age 13.
What's going on in the neighborhood? What year is it?
1992. The Chronic had just dropped. Rest in peace, my cousin Rob. And man, we were living on Plymouth on 1 Mile, P Rock. And I got kicked out the house.
What is going on? If you're 14, what's your daily life like?
At 13, Wildermere is crack central, Dauphin City. I get kicked out the house. I move over to my grandmother's house on Rosemont in Plymouth. My grandmother was real strict. She always ran a little house, you know, so she did numbers, you know what I mean, for years. So you couldn't touch the phone, you couldn't do this, couldn't do this, couldn't do that.
So your family was kind of in the underground economy?
No question. My family was in the underground economy.
Not necessarily drugs, it's all kinds of shit.
Yeah, just period. You know what I'm saying? My grandmother was, you know, she used to smuggle immigrants from Canada. My other grandmother, she ran numbers all my life. What I chose to take a liking to was the streets. Because coming from Wildermere, I seen the difference between, you know, those that had and those that didn't have. Wildermere was known for at least making $100,000 a day. And at this time, it was ran by Frank Nitty and Louie. Rest in peace, both of them. My grandmother was real strict. So, you know, I decided to go to this party one night and I didn't come home. And from there, you know what I'm saying, I come back the next day. She was at church. When she walked in, she started slapping me up. I just left an abusive household, so that's what I wasn't going for. So I left. And when I left, me and my homie Chuck, rest in peace, Charles Caldwell, we end up finding somebody to work for. And back in the day, at this era, they would call it rolling. And everybody that was rolling looked for youngsters like me to sit in their house and do shifts. I didn't want no shifts. I wanted the whole day.
The jobs I was offering and did, and you did, it was like a regular job. You come here from 4, you work to 12, or whatever the situation was. What was that like?
When you ran shifts was just like any other job, first, second, and third. And you sit there with you and your partner with the strap, and y'all sell rocks for 8 hours. You know, whether you skipping school, you go after school, you go, you know, to the next morning.
And how much would come through in a day?
I mean, your house might do $5,000-$10,000 a day. You know what I mean? You make, anyway, you can make any. I was getting $500 a day because I'm doing the whole day.
And you're what, 14?
I'm 13.
What are you doing with this money?
Nothing. Like, honestly, you know what I mean? I bought a triple fat goose at the time.
That's 1 day pay.
I probably, you know, bought a bunch of Nikes. Back then it was about getting fresh. I'm a poor at this time. I'm not supporting the household. I ran away from my grandmother. So all I'm doing is stacking my money, and all we doing is blowing it. You know, we just got introduced to smoking marijuana because of the Chronic, so we just experienced with blunts from a joint era. You know, Joey, rest in peace. My partner Nicholas, he doing 40 years right now. You know, 1 Mile Chuck, rest in peace. Buck, Mr. Peter Roll. I mean, we ran the streets of Plymouth. And that's when I kind of got introduced to the Bloods. That was my first introduction.
So you were introduced to the Bloods in Detroit?
In Detroit is when my partner Demond was a vice lord / Blood.
Gangs traditionally not really been in Detroit.
Gangs traditionally ain't been in Detroit, but I gotta say that in 1993.
Is this someone who was from California?
No, he's from 1 Mile, and he was a gangbanger.
How did he get?
I couldn't tell you the history. He was older than me, but that's the first time that's the first time I recognized a Blood, red flags, things of that nature. So my grandmother came out there for a family reunion. When she came to the family reunion, my dad had came to the neighborhood and needed to put an APB out on me and shit. And he found me. when he told my grandma was out here from California, she wanted to talk to me. So I go to my nana house, we all sit down, and she had give me an option. Do I want to stay out here in Detroit in the streets, or do I want to come to California? I chose to go to California. A year later, I got kicked out of California for armed robbery. The money was slow. It wasn't nothing like making $500 a day that I was used to making when I was working for Nut.
It's Friday night at midnight on a cold November in 1993 on Puritan and Wildermere.
It's creepy. You know, if you didn't know the dope fiends or the junkies.
It's haunted. For people who have been in Detroit,
for
it's
those
haunted
that
house.
don't-
It's a haunted house.
For those that don't know anything about Detroit or the cocaine crack era, it was creepy.
Wasn't fun.
Nah. If you didn't know the dope fiends in your neighborhood, like, I always had a lot of jobs. My job in the neighborhood was to clean up other people's shit, go to the store for them. I worked for Smitty, I worked for Bob and Ron. I worked for every drug dealer in the neighborhood. I was their store man. When they wanted their lotteries played, they needed stand backs, they wanted to fold a piece, or they wanted a Fago piece pop. That was my job. Every day I had the same routine. And then I go to Farmer Jack and get my hustle on, helping people with their groceries. So when I moved to California, the money was slow. I ended up hooking up with my partner Jay Wee, you know what I'm saying, who ended up later on getting stabbed 13 times. He's been paralyzed ever since he was 15 years old. And that's my partner to this day. And the homie Lil Scotty. So what they introduced me to was San Bernadino. Now even though I grew up in Rialto, I grew up in San Bernadino as well, which is only 6 minutes away.
But that's different.
It's a way difference. That west side of San Bernardino, now
I call it the Detroit of California.
that's the heart of the streets. San Bernardino is like Highland Park. You know anything about Detroit, Michigan, you know Highland Park or Brightmoor is two of the most treacherous places on the west side. And I gotta say, man, San Bernardino was like, and Rialto was like night and day.
Because you were used to that from Detroit, you were kind of, even though you're living in a nicer area, you're like,
I'm trained,
drawn to that
and I'm like, it's like a magnet to be in the street life. It's something I was destined for. I remember being in the drug program in the federal penitentiary, and a lady asked me, what did I want to be when I grow up? And I told her I always wanted to be a gangster. And I think she took that as a egotistical, typical sarcastic, but it wasn't when you grew up around nothing but gangsters and hustlers.
your half-sister's family, the Valentines.
See, that's a whole nother subject because my sister daddy, his name is John Doe, known as J.D. Valentine. And I respected Doc because the Doc took care of my mama kids.
Who was Tony Valentine to Puritan?
That's
to
his little
BMF?
brother.
How does that all connect?
My uncle Tony Valentine, you know what I'm saying, he was one of them dudes, you know what I'm saying. Actually, I think alleged Meech worked for Tony, you know, and Tony ended up dying in the federal penitentiary. Anybody that know TV, Mob, you know what I'm saying, they Puritan legends. You know what I'm saying? This was just a part of my everyday lifestyle, you know, seeing people in brand new cars, fur coats, you know what I'm saying, just having money, and that's kind of my origin.
But yet the neighborhood's fucked up.
The neighborhood fucked up. It's a slum, you know. Parkside was the worst block over there. You know what I'm saying? And
So now you're in San Bernadino.
now I'm in San Bernardino, and I got. See, the thing about the difference between Detroit and San Bernardino is this: San Bernardino respect that pistol, Detroit respect that money and that hustle, but they both one and the same because Detroit represent money and gangster shit, and San Bernardino do as well. At this time, Kimbo, rest in peace, is the king of San Bernardino, and he from Gilbert Street. And my
What's Gilbert Street?
Gilbert Street is Bloods,
And is that
and they know.
what you're supposedly...
And I ain't no supposedly nothing. I got put on Gilbert Street at 13 years old. And the reason why I got put on Gilbert Street was because the G homies recognized my hustle along with my street gangsterism. And we was putting in work. So what that made them want to do is grab me. And because I was from Detroit and I didn't grow up in the neighborhood, you know what I mean, they took a liking to me, and my name is really Detroit Black.
In Gilbert Street is a non-LA gang, though, that's in the scheme of Southern
We
California
the town.
is respected.
San Bernardino is the town and LA is the city. We 40 minutes away from each other.
What you're a part of is respected.
Oh, it's respected all through the system. You know what I mean? The IA card is very strong. You know what I'm saying? And the difference between where I laid my head at in Rialto and San Bernadino was that the hood is surrounded by Mount Vernon. And Mount Vernon is known for pimps and hoes and, you know, a real money street. They call it money earning. And I had access to this capital over there because now I'm from the hood. Now I'm able to come over here and hustle and grind. You know, so through my grind, I ended up meeting a dude that I fucked with, an older head, you know what I'm saying? He in the pen right now, he my G-Do. And he was robbing jewelry store licks. You know what I'm saying? He hit a jewelry store for $250,000. You know what I'm saying? He seen that I was interested. You know what I mean? I listened, and you know, I was a little different than some of my homeboys because some people was cool with selling rocks, but because I came from making $500 a day to I don't got a fucking dime. My grandma gave me $150 a year at Christmas time. If I got any type of girlfriend or anybody that I like, I gotta buy something at Christmas. Plus, make sure I got a couple khaki suits. So it wasn't working for me. Make a long story short, I started hustling on the block. But due to my curfew, I couldn't stay long. So between school and my grandmother and making sure I had my ass at home on time, I decided I need to hit some licks. So make a long story short, I started hitting licks. At 14 years old, you know, I'm into my third lick. I got probably like $7,500. I'm able to buy a car, but I can't because I ain't old enough to drive. You know, I done bought a little jewelry. My girlfriend at the time had a son. I'm 14 years old.
How old was your girlfriend?
She was 14 too. She had my first son, Anthony. So, you know what I'm saying? As a man, or as a kid, or a man, whatever you want to call me at 14, an adolescent, I feel like it was my responsibility to take care of him. You know, and try to be a father that I didn't have, or he had either. So, it was a song that Goody Mob made called Get Up, Get Out, and Get Something.
Don't spend all your time trying to get high.
And I'm listening to this song one day and I'm like, man, something gotta shake. So I called my partner. My partner said, come on. We started hitting licks. And one day I did some bullshit, man. I doubled back and I robbed the same place twice. And I got caught. I get the money, I hit the drop, I get the money, I hear the tire screech. They chase me. Bam, I go through the alley. You got to investigate. The detectives on me. I get caught. I end up going to Guild Street Juvenile Hall on the east side, and they offering to give me 8 years in YA. It was either go to YA or sit here and fight this case, which I'm gonna lose. I got caught red-handed. So because I've always been a thinker and I feel like God always had his hands on me, I chose to bring up to my lawyer that my grandmother already bought my plane ticket to go back to Detroit to see my mama for the summer. Now this is 1994. The judge grants me the rights to go back to Detroit to my mom, but never come back to California until I'm over 18. I get kicked out of California at the age of 14.
Banned.
I get banned from California at the age of 14. What brought me back to California?
So how long did you stay away?
A year.
So what goes on during that year?
In the year that I was gone, well, in the year that I came,
You go back to Detroit.
What makes it interesting, the day I got off the plane and got back to California, to Detroit, I went right back to Wildermere and Puritan. At this time, the block is probably doing somewhat 100,000, maybe close to 150 a day.
It's one of the most active drug areas in Detroit.
It's so active over here. It's one of the most active streets in Detroit, and it's documented. Google that.
No, 100%.
And the day I get back, I go to my homegirl Tamika house, and she crying, and she like, you know, I know Tamika love me to death, and I'm like, damn, what's up? Like, I ain't getting no love. She like, you know, Jay, I'm happy to see you, but you know, my dad just got killed. And when she said it, it hit me so hard because growing up poor in this community, you look up to those that you feel like made it. And her daddy name was Louis, rest in peace. And during my poor years, Louis would give me the shirt off his back. I had all his hand-me-downs came to me. His Gucci, his Levi's, his freaky shirts that they called him at the time. Like Louis was like a father figure to me. You know what I'm saying? This was her dad. And I worked for Louis, and that was, you know, it just fucked me up that day. So my partner Donnell Flint, rest in peace, he died while I was in the feds, man. A good dude from Highland Park, 7 Mile. And we went around the corner, man, and we bought an ounce of weed. We paid $140 for it. And at that time, I asked him, I said, you just paid $140 for that weed? And I thought to myself, I said, I just bought a motherfucking quarter pound in California for $120. I know damn well you ain't just spent $140 on this ounce of weed. So at that time, I end up, you know, my past is back. I'm back on the block. I'm back in this abusive household. I get kicked out the house again. I'm going to Mumford. When I get kicked out of this house, my partner Will, Billy, one lump, I end up moving with him and his sister Mona, rest in peace. Money Who, rest in peace. And that was a hell of a year. You know, 1994, 1995. It was a lot of shootings, a lot of weed smoke. Bone Thugs and Harmony had just came out. Shit, my hair was long as hell.
Do you feel lucky to have made it alive and free out of that year?
Ultimately blessed. Ultimately blessed. A lot of people who name I just mentioned, Money Who was a real hustler from Detroit, you know what I'm saying? He ended up dying with one gunshot to the chest. Mona Who ran the hotel.
He's running around who, I don't know what he did or didn't do, but he's been convicted of.
Oh yeah, you know, Stuck the big homie, you know what I'm saying? He convicted of, you know, all type of alleged shit, you know what I'm saying? Free T Stucky. But at this time, you know, I'm trying to find myself because I can't go back to California. I can't go back to my mom's. I'm in the streets, you know, but this was kind of my transition in life to understand the difference between a hustler or a bitch ass nigga. And the reason why I use that word bitch ass nigga is because I was living in a house where a woman was taking care of the whole house. And I had an option to sit around like everybody else and let her provide for them or get on my grind. So I left and I came back to California. So when I get back to California, you know, I left a rider, I came back a rider. 1995 was a vicious year because a lot of Bloods turned Crips. So when I come back, I see a lot of niggas, you know, who was supposed to be whooping and now these niggas is on some other shit, and I wasn't feeling that. And you know, it was a new gang that came up in the town and they focus was hating IE dudes. And you know, by me being an active member of my gang.
So just to go delve into the sociology of this. So what's happening at this time, a lot of African Americans are being, because of cost or whatever reason, LA South Central so bad, they're leaving and a lot of them are going to San Bernadino, so they're bringing new gang beefs and it's just a lot of mixed up shit. Is that correct?
Yes and no. But at this time, they done already made their mark. You
but
know,
more people are coming.
a lot of people coming. A lot of people there, a lot of people coming.
And it's a big drug town.
It's a big drug town.
Valuable real estate.
It's valuable real estate. But what people is not understanding is that a lot of these dudes grew up in the Inland Empire. Family, they might have came, majority of the people that's in San Bernardino came from LA.
But
if they didn't come from LA, San Bernardino is originally an Air Force town. So, you know, a lot of people, it's a military town, so a lot of people, you know, came there for military. But San Bernardino is rock and roll and it's a lot of money out there. You know what I mean? A lot of people had their back against the wall against dudes they feel like they can come take over. Because like I said, it's a town. I compare it to Flint and Detroit. Flint will be San Bernardino, Detroit will be LA. But when I came back, the transition was different because I had seen something